Next up, reference angles. Before we get into reference angles, we want to go over how to sketch angles, and there's a couple things you need to know. First, you're always going to start on the positive x-axis. Next, you're always going to be drawing in a counterclockwise direction. Let's say we wanted to sketch 100 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and start here on my positive x-axis. I'm going to go around until I get to about 100, which will be somewhere around here because we're in between 90 and 180, but not that much more than 90. Next up, I can draw my little line here, and I know that this angle represents 100 degrees. Let's try to sketch 305 degrees. So again, let's start on our positive x-axis. We're going to rotate past 90, past 180, past 270, and 305 is going to be somewhere right around here, in between 270 and the full 360. So this is going to be our 305 degree sketched angle. Alright, so that's not too bad, but what if we had our angle in radians? Okay, that's a little more difficult because we're not used to radians so much. So here again, we've got 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2. If we keep going, we'll have 2 pi, and then we can keep going, etc., etc., etc. Let's try and sketch the angle 5 pi over 4. So some of you might be able to look at 5 pi over 4 and know exactly where to draw that angle. But let's say you're not sure where 5 pi over 4 lands. Maybe it's in here, maybe 5 pi over 4 is in here, maybe it's in here. If you're not sure, the easiest way I've found to do that is let's go ahead and get common denominators between our degree and our markers here. So starting at pi over 2, that would give us a common denominator of 4. So let's change this pi over 2 to a denominator of 4. And that's going to give us 2 pi over 4. If we had pi, we could change that to 4 pi over 4. Our 3 pi over 2, that could be 6 pi over 4. And our 2 pi, that could be 8 pi over 4. So now that we've got common denominators here between 5 pi over 4, we know 5 pi over 4 is bigger than 2 pi over 4. So we can draw this way. We know it's bigger than 4 pi over 4. So it's going to be one more, since 5 pi over 4. 5 pi over 4 is right in between 4 pi over 4 and 6 pi over 4. So we've got our angle, 5 pi over 4. Now finding common denominators for every single marking point could take some time depending on what your numbers are, but as you get better, you'll be able to recognize which quadrant, which of these 4 quadrants the angles end up in, and then you won't have to find common denominators. It's really only necessary if you're not sure which of these 4 quadrants the angle ends up in. Alright, just as a quick example here so you don't get too freaked out when you come across a negative degree. If you end up with a negative degree that you want to sketch, for example, negative 190, instead of going clockwise, we're going to go, counterclockwise, we are going to go clockwise. And you could think of it the same exact way. So instead of this being 270, this is going to be now negative 90. This would be negative 180. This would be negative 270, etc., etc., etc. So if we're trying to sketch negative 190, I could sketch that starting here, and I'd go past negative 90, past negative 180, and a little bit more would give me my negative 190 degrees. Okay, now that you've got sketching angles, let's finally get into reference angles. And reference angle is just the angle that's formed with the x-axis. Always the angle formed with the x-axis. Let's go ahead and find the reference angle for 110 degrees. So if I sketched 110 degrees, I'm going to end up with my angle somewhere a little bit past 90 degrees. So this is my 110 degree angle sketch. I want to find the angle formed with the x-axis. This would be this angle right here. I know that this is 180, so since this is 110, all I have to do is subtract 180 and 110, which is going to give me my reference angle of 70 degrees, right? Because 110 plus 70 will give me 180. Let's try to find the reference angle for 204 degrees. So again, let's go ahead and sketch our angle. That's going to be 204, somewhere right around here. That's 204 degrees. I want to find the angle formed with the x-axis. So here's the x-axis. this is the angle that I want for my reference angle. So since this is 180, I'm going to 204. My reference angle is going to be 24 degrees, right? Because 180 plus 24 gives me 204, or you can do 204 degrees minus 180 degrees to give me the difference, which is 24. However you want to do it. My angle formed between the x-axis is 24 degrees. Let's try to do one with radians. Here we have 13 pi over 6. So first I'm going to start by getting common denominators for all my marking points. Okay, so now let's go ahead and draw our 13 pi over 6. Starting at here, I'm going to go past pi over 2, 3 pi over 6, 6 pi over 6, 9 pi over 6, 12 pi over 6, and I know I'm going to be a little bit more than 12 pi over 6 because I've got 13 pi over 6 right here. Now I could have done another 2 pi, added another 2 pi to this 3 pi over 6 to find out what this marking point would be if I kept going around, but I see that 13 pi over 6 is just a little more than 12 pi over 6, so I know it's going to be here. So my reference angle is going to be this angle right here formed with the x-axis. Now even though we've gone full circle all the way around and back to the start, we're going to find our reference angle the same way. So I have a couple different options. 12 pi over 6 plus what gives me 13 pi over 6. So I can find out that this is going to be pi over 6. Because 12 pi over 6 plus pi over 6 is 13 pi over 6. Or you could do 13 pi over 6 minus 12 pi over 6, which will give you pi over 6 as well. Either way, we want to find this angle right here formed with the x-axis.